What's going on, Giants fans? Hit Squad back at it with another video. We have another episode of the Giant Breakdown today. We are joined by Cal from Buffalo SportsCenter. Appreciate you making the time, my friends. How's everything going with you today?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. I'm doing pretty good today. How about yourself?
I can't complain, man. Again, I really do appreciate you making the time. And again, you guys can find Cal as well as his partner Don's YouTube channel, Buffalo Sports Center, as well as their TikTok and Instagram links in the description. If you guys have a Discord as well, you guys can find that as well in the Twitter description. Cal, let's jump straight into it. Some storylines going into the game. Obviously Brian Dable, Joe Shane, Bobby Johnson, hell, throw in Tyrod Taylor and Matt Breida. The guys coming back to Buffalo. I'll be honest with you. I thought that this would be a more exciting game as a Giants fan. It is not whatsoever. I'm pretty sure, a lot of Buffalo fans had this game penciled in as well going into the season with maybe a little bit of higher expectations in terms of competition from the Giants. But I wanted to get your thoughts. What are your thoughts going into this, into this game? And, with Brian Dable, Bobby Johnson, Joe Shane coming back, how are the fans feeling?
Well, first things first, I'm a huge Brian Dable fan. I loved him when he was here. I thought, obviously a very creative mind on offense. We have Ken Dorsey now as our offensive coordinator, and it has not gone too well. A lot of issues internally, but we'll see what happens there. But overall, this game, it's a must-win for Buffalo, right? Buffalo coming back from London, having that completely awful game against the Jaguars. I know a lot of players are blaming the turf, injuries, blah, blah, blah. You can't really have that excuse, though. I mean, you lost to the Jaguars. It happens. It is what it is. But a must-win game against the Giants. And, like you said, a lot of old friends coming back to Buffalo. Tyrod Taylor, we did not expect that until this week. I loved Tyrod when he was here, too. Got us out of the drought. Him and LaShawn McCoy running that offense. So a lot of respect for Tyrod Taylor. It'll be fun to see what he does. But, kind of a bummer Daniel Jones isn't in there. Like you said, Bobby Johnson, too, offensive line coach, was okay when he was here in Buffalo, but our offensive line wasn't too talented under him. So, we'll see what happens. I know he's struggled a little bit, too, with that O-line in New York. But, yeah, I think this game might be closer than people think. Just, flat out, Brian Dable knows the Bills. The Bills know Brian Dable. The Bills definitely know Tyrod. Sean McDermott coached Tyrod under his last year here. So I think it's going to be a lot of different, fun plays. They're going to go back and forth. Both teams know each other pretty well. You said Matt Breida, too. Matt Breida, again, probably didn't expect him to be too much of a factor, but Saquon coming back from the injury probably won't be getting the normal reps if he does play that he's used to getting. So Matt Breida might be a big part in this game. We'll see what happens, but I think it's going to be closer than a lot of people think.
Yeah, I mean, I think this team will at least compete and try to fight, for Brian Dable going into this game because this Giants team is injured, man. I mean, we had seen a beat reporter have to announce that they had to buy Twitter Blue just so that they can fit the amount of characters. That's how injured this Giants team is. At one point last week, we had 4 guards and a right tackle playing on our offensive line. Bad. It is bad. And, with DJ being out, it doesn't stop there for the Giants. Andrew Thomas, our all-pro left tackle, will be out. Our starting center, John Michael Schmitz, he will be out. Our rotational offensive tackle, Matt Parrott, he will be out. Our number 1 edge rusher in Azeez Ojulari, he will be out. So the Giants just are not looking good right now. And as a Giants fan, I'm not going to lie, as excited as I am to see Tyrod in this offense, though I feel like we already know what we have in Tyrod, that defense for Buffalo terrifies me. I mean, you lead the lead in sacks with 21 and in takeaways at 13. I mean, every defense so far this season has been able to stat their pads against the New York Giants offensive line, which right now is filled with Costco workers and a pick in Evan Neal. So I would be lying if I said I was not scared for Tyrod's life. I'm thankful that Daniel Jones does not have to be behind that offensive line. And again, that Buffalo team is just year in and year out competing for a Super Bowl, right? I mean, I think you guys have a very good shot this year. I love the addition of Kincaid, which we'll talk about in a second. But we know with Buffalo, you guys have a high powered offense. I mean, I, for one, can't wait to see those red uniforms. To me, I think that screams history, as well as the Giants bringing out their away alternative jersey. Um, Part of me, and I do want to get your thoughts on the Milano and Tre'Davious White situation. Part of me is hopeful that the Giants will actually get the ball to the receivers, tight end Darren Waller a little bit more. We really haven't been targeting him as much as I thought going into this year. I would say outside of last week, it's been very minimum, very subpar. Really not liking the performance I'm seeing from these wide receivers right now. There's things that go into it, but it's just not looking good for this Giants team. And Josh Allen, which I thought this was pretty cool. Josh Allen, I mean, he's been very good against the blitz. Let's just be real. He's been very good against the blitz. Wink Martindale loves sending the blitz, so I'm kind of intrigued to see how Wink is going to play this game because I think that Buffalo offense, man. I mean, if you don't have, and this is a young secondary for the Giants, if you don't have your players on their P's and Q's, Josh Allen and that offense will make you pay. And again, like I just stated, this is a young secondary for the Giants, so that does concern me a little bit. But with those injuries in Milano, Tre'Davious White, yeah, the loss against Jacksonville, which I, to be honest with you, don't put too much weight in. I think that happens to every team, a loss like that. How is this team feeling, though? I mean, are you guys feeling confident in this game? I mean, I know you said it's going to be a tight game, but do you feel that this should be a game that Buffalo goes in and quote unquote gets right?
I definitely think so. I mean, going into this game, even if the Giants weren't injured, it still should be a win for Buffalo. I mean, the spread right now is at 14 points. So even if you got all your guys, it still should be, at least a 7, maybe 5-point spread for the Bills. But Giants going in heavily injured. But yeah, back to the injuries. Let's start with Milano, right? Matt Milano, I think, is a top 3 linebacker in the league. Very underrated player. I mean, if you watch every single Bills game, he is all over the field. Great at tackling, great at covering, can do a little bit of everything. He's out. Terrell Bernard is our new middle linebacker. Obviously, Tremaine Edmonds is gone in Chicago now, which around the league he gets a lot of praise, but in Buffalo, not a lot of people liked him. But it is what it is. He gets the bag in Chicago, but he's got all the physical attributes, but never really, panned them all together. But Terrell Bernard, a rookie linebacker, he's looked good so far, but again, he's a rookie, so you can't really put too much into that. The backup to Milano, Dorian Williams, another rookie, late round pick. So you don't have a lot of experience at that middle linebacker position. We just elevated AJ Klein, another linebacker who's been on the team for 3 or 4 years now, up and down from the practice squad, bouncing around. He's old at this point, though. He's not very fast. So the linebacker spot is probably the weakest position on the Bills right now. It already might have been going into the season just based on experience. But now that you're out, Matt Milano, who, again, like I said, top 3 linebacker in the league, that sucks. Let's go to Tre'Davious White. Now, Tre'Davious White, back-to-back injuries for him, right? I mean, you got the ACL, then you got the Achilles. He did not handle the ACL well at all. He's one of those guys who really struggled through the injury, needed teammates constantly to pump him up. He wants to play ball. And unfortunately, for the second straight season, he's going to be out. I don't know if he ever touches the NFL field again. Back-to-back injuries like that. He's getting paid a lot. Do the Bills cut him after this year? I doubt it, but maybe. Dane Jackson stepped into his role and honestly played pretty good. He stepped in against the Dolphins, had a nice hit, broke up Tyreek Hill on the 2-point conversion. He's been with the Bills for a couple of years now. He's up and down, though. We've seen a lot of bad Dane Jackson, but he is also questionable this week with a foot injury, but he should be playing. Other cornerbacks, Christian Benford, a second-year guy, he's been pretty solid this season. And Kaiir Elam, former first-round pick, second-year guy, was inactive all the way until last week. Came in last week against the Jags and was by far the worst player on the defense. So not a good look for him. So the cornerback position, another very weak spot. And then we go to D-line, a couple injuries up and down the D-line. Leonard Floyd, a little beat up. But you got Ed Oliver, you got Greg Rousseau returning from injury this week, who very underrated. I think he's going to be very good this season. AJ Epinesa, who had a breakout game against the Jags, a couple batted balls, couple sacks, looked really good there. And then Von Miller, who only played about 20%. Only played about 20% against Jacksonville, but that's because the turf was bad and he was on a pitch count. He should be back to full strength in either this week or next week. So I think these injuries are going to hurt the Bills, but I don't think they necessarily eliminate them from Super Bowl contention. And then I know you wanted to talk about Kincaid a little later, so I'll hold off on his injury and also Dawson Knox's.
Man, I mean, as a Giants fan, I I kind of envy that, man. I mean, you guys have a deep defensive line, and as a Giants fan, I also hope that Von Miller takes an extra week to get healthy, as we don't need him getting double-digit sacks damn near in this game against this offensive line. That is how bad this offensive line is. If you're able to give up 11 sacks against Seattle, I think you and I can both agree that Buffalo's defense is a little bit better, if not a lot better than Seattle's. So that, again, that worries me, man. I'm not going to lie to you. That worries me. And, I could definitely understand that. And that was something that I was looking at in terms of Milano. Again, can the Giants get Waller more active? Same with Jalen Hyatt out of the slot. Hopefully, I'm very intrigued to see how Tyrod is going to operate this offense, because even what we saw in Miami, it looked decent. He was running around for his life, and you had some fans that were cheering, saying, "Okay, it looks like we're getting something going." Whole time he's just running around trying to make plays, receivers trying to get open, offensive line isn't holding up, so. Yeah, that terrifies me, man. But I still think that the secondary that you guys have, even with Tre'Davious White being out, is still a very, very respectable secondary. That's not a secondary that you want to sleep on. Is it a secondary that, if you're the Giants, you're feeling ultra confident going against? Probably not. With Saquon, we'll see how he's feeling. He's been limited. It hasn't been fully announced yet that he will be playing, but it's looking like he might. And if he is, I do expect him to be on a pitch count, if I'm being honest with you, mixing in Matt Breida. Now, I know you had mentioned Kincaid. Going into the draft, Kincaid was a player that I actually really liked and hoped that any team outside of the Cowboys would select. I did not want to see, Dallas get their hands on him. So when we saw, come draft day, Buffalo make that infamous trade, for me, I loved it. I loved it. I thought actually outside of, the whole Dallas thing, I thought that was a great addition for that Buffalo offense. You add another weapon for Josh Allen. Kincaid was a beast in college. I'm sure he'll do just fine in the NFL. I feel like, and I've seen this just in the Twitter aspect, and I definitely want to get your thoughts. I've seen some Buffalo fans kind of react, I would say overreact negatively in the sense, just because I feel like they kind of compare it to Laporta in, Detroit. But I feel that shouldn't take away with what Kincaid has been doing. I think Kincaid, so far at least, is having a solid year. And if he is healthy going into this game, yeah, that does kind of worry me a little bit in terms of our linebacking core.
Yeah, for sure. On draft day, the immediate reaction in Buffalo was negative towards Dalton Kincaid.
Wow.
I was pretty on the fence, because you got to think the Bills wanted probably, to upgrade that linebacker spot to replace Tremaine Edmonds, or to replace Spencer Brown on the offensive line, who had a rough season before. He's been okay this season, but those are the two main spots. Our offense was already pretty stacked. We just paid Dawson Knox too. So getting another tight end was kind of a confusing move, but offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey loves to run the two tight end spread. So getting a guy like Kincaid kind of was right up his alley. So it did make sense. And let me tell you, once training camp started, the emotions completely swapped. Everyone loved Kincaid. They were like, it just made complete sense. Dalton Kincaid is phenomenal out there. He's making every catch. So the emotions switched on that. And so far this year, he hasn't done a whole lot, but he has made some big catches and some big moments, and he hasn't had any big mistakes. No fumbles. I don't think he's dropped a ball so far this season, which you cannot say for Dawson Knox, who's dropped a couple big ones. So, Dalton Kincaid, he looks great so far. I wish we would throw to our tight ends more. I think that really would have helped us last week against the Jags. Very unfortunate that Ken Dorsey has what he wants now, but he still will not, contribute that to the offense. With that being said, coming into this week, Dalton Kincaid was in the concussion protocol. The good news is he is out of the concussion protocol, but he is still questionable for the game. Should be good to go. I mean, I don't really see a reason why he wouldn't be if he was, out of the concussion protocol. We'll see. Other tight end Dawson Knox has a hand injury. He was just at the Sabres game last night, spotted with a little brace on his thumb. So he might not be in the lineup. We'll see. Questionable there. But yeah, overall with Dalton Kincaid, I could not be more excited about that pick. I think he's going to be a beast. And like you mentioned, Laporta, he's definitely putting up better stats than Dalton Kincaid, but I'd expect that to change sooner than later. There's been some rumors that Josh Allen doesn't trust Dalton Kincaid because he's a rookie, but it doesn't really make sense because he's said multiple times Dalton Kincaid's got some of the best hands on the team. So we'll see what happens there. But I think as the season progresses, Dalton Kincaid's targets and receptions will significantly increase.
Yeah, I mean, I think you make some excellent points there. And I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily a trust thing between him and Josh Allen. I mean, you would know more than I do, but I think the rookie will come along, and I think that in the end, I think you guys made the right decision. Taking Dalton Kincaid, and I think Lions fans will be fine with Laporta, but if I had to take the two 9 times out of 10, I'm taking Kincaid. I love his ability. I love his catching, route running. I think he's a fairly decent blocker as well. And then you pair him with the Dawson Knox. I mean, that's a good 1-2 punch. And again, like I had stated earlier, with that high-powered offense that you guys have, I mean, it just adds to that weapon room. And with this young secondary already having to worry about Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis. Now, even Buffalo, I feel, is having a solid run game with Cooks and Latavius Murray. I mean, that's another thing that this Giants team has to worry about because the Giants' run defense is still a problem. We've made some additions. It's, if you will, it's helped. But to me, I feel like it's still a very weak point for this team right now, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And I'm a transition into this. For this Giants team to have any chance in this game, this defense is going to have to really keep them in the game. The defense, going against Miami, got their first takeaway. Actually, we had 3 in that game, but all 3 of our takeaways this year as a total came from one game. We went into that game with 0. We were able, to really keep our offense in the game going against the Dolphins, and our offense just couldn't capitalize, unfortunately. So I'm expecting this defense to at least attempt to keep it close. It's kind of hard to limit, especially with Josh Allen's legs. It's hard to limit Josh Allen and that high-powered offense, but if there's any defensive coordinator I trust, it's Wink Martindale. Now, looking at the offensive side of the ball, like I said earlier, that defensive line scares me. It quite literally terrifies me knowing that what we have out there is not good. It is not good whatsoever. So I'm going to need a pretty solid performance by this defense to at least keep it competitive with this Buffalo team, because I hate saying this, man. I already know you probably have this as a win. I don't see the Giants winning this game. I know a lot of people in Giants Nation don't see the Giants winning this game. I think if we had all of our players healthy and maybe, we've been playing a little bit better this season, I'd feel a little bit better. But I always had this game as a loss, even going into this season. I just think that Buffalo is in a tier of its own when it comes to, the NFL with, the Chiefs, the Eagles, you could throw the 49ers in there, obviously. They're just in a tier of their own. And the Giants are nowhere near that right now. We are still a rebuilding team, and now we're an injured rebuilding team. So, it's not looking good. So what are some things, while we wrap this up, what are some things that you think, Buffalo can do going into this game to secure a win and feel better, leaving that game compared to London? And what are some things that you'll be looking out for?
First things first, let's play a little bit of a cleaner football. The Bills, it seemed they had a flag on every single play against the Jaguars. Again, a lot of fans blame the refs, bad calls. But again, if you're committing fouls, they can call the flags at any moment. So that's the first thing. Play clean football. This should be a win for the Bills. Don't shoot yourself in the foot. Just play smart football, and you should be able to come out on top. Number 2, get the pass game going early. Ken Dorsey, and if Bills fans are watching this, they know what I'm talking about. Every first down to start the game, it seems, they hand it off to Cook into a stacked box, and it's -2 yards, and then you end up with a 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7 every single time. And, we haven't converted those this year, unlike a couple seasons ago, which is a little bit annoying. Let Josh Allen be Josh Allen. Last week against the Jags, I think he had one play where he scrambled out of the pocket. There were a couple of times where he could have easily got the first down, ended up chucking the ball downfield into double coverage, didn't end up well. Let Josh Allen be Josh Allen. That's kind of been the saying this entire season. He seems a little bit reserved. I don't know if that's Ken Dorsey in his ear telling him, play smarter football, don't go out and get injured, which I agree with, right? We don't want to see Josh Allen getting blown up every single play. And that's something he's struggled with, throughout his entire career, is when to slide, when to get down. But he's Josh Allen. You got to let him do that a little bit in order to succeed. A couple of things I want to look out for. If Saquon Barkley's back, I want to see how our run defense is. Our run defense was about, it was pretty solid throughout the first couple of weeks when we were healthy, but our pass defense is probably stronger. But that D-line's just been great. So we'll see what happens, how much Saquon Barkley plays there. Another thing, if both tight ends end up being out for the Bills, I want to see if we use third-string tight end Quentin Morris or if we start using some of our other receivers we brought in. Deontay Hardy, he's played a lot. Unlike Trent Sherfield, who I thought was going to be a major factor, from the Dolphins. I thought he was going to be a major factor this season for the Bills. I think he's had maybe like 5-6 catches, and, a couple of weeks he had 0 targets. So I definitely want to get the ball in his hands a little more. And then the last thing, like you mentioned, all video long, that Giants offensive line. I want to see the dynamic between the Bills' stacked defensive line versus that struggling Giants offensive line. And I got to say, I think having Tyrod in this game over Daniel Jones might actually help, because Tyrod is a little quicker. You might be able to, if somebody, blows off a guard and just, gets to the backfield in less than a second, Tyrod might be able to shimmy out of a few tackles, might be able to get that ball out a little quicker, and might be able to scramble for a little more yardage than Daniel Jones, who would probably take a sack or, maybe have to throw it away. So those are the things I want to look out for. But overall, I think this should be a win for the Bills. Again, it's in Buffalo, Sunday Night Football. It should be packed, should be loud. We'll see what happens, though. You never know. After a loss against the Jags, anything can happen. But the team is in good spirits, even though they had a lot of injuries the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think you made some solid points there. I agree with you. I agree with you on a lot of things that you said, man. And, again, for the Giants, we have to be able to at least keep this somewhat competitive. Buffalo, I feel, should be able to come in and handle business. For the Giants, they're going to have their hands full, but fight for your coach. Fight for your team. Right now, you're starting, if not already, the joke of the league. You have the 32nd ranked offensive line. Defense isn't that much better. You have your QB1 that is injured. Season is looking bleak right now. And all I ask is for you to compete, make it competitive, and to not wet the bed, because the Giants just have been getting outplayed and mismatched every single game outside of the second half against the Arizona Cardinals. We have yet to score a touchdown offensively in the first half this year, which is, in the way with how the NFL is now, very embarrassing to say, considering it's a passing league. So for the Giants, I agree with you. I think Buffalo comes in and handles their business. I think this is like a 35-17 kind of a game, and I never want to root against my team, but I try to be real and I try to be realistic. And if I'm being realistic, I just don't see how this Giants team wins unless you are playing the turnover Josh Allen, as I like to call him, where he's trying to play hero ball and, try to fit it in, maybe try to throw the ball downfield to Diggs, like we saw last year with Sauce Gardner and MetLife. I don't think we'll see that Josh Allen this Sunday. I think we'll see a more locked-in Josh Allen coming off of that loss against Jacksonville, but it's not looking too good. I know we had just said, before we let you go, I wanted to get one more question in. Yep. So I know we just said that, we'll wrap this up. We actually have a question from someone on Twitter. So we have from IsCasman75. Will Tyrod Taylor get a standing ovation from Buffalo fans for giving them a playoff berth since 1999? I'm going to have you answer that, because I actually think that's a very good question.
That's a good question. I haven't even thought of that. I think 95% of Bills fans like Tyrod. when he was in Buffalo, there were a lot of ups and downs. The
Yeah.
big complaint about him is he could not throw the ball over the middle. He's a little shorter, was kind of scared to get them balls batted down, but he's got a cannon of an arm, and that's a lot. That's a thing that a lot of people don't really realize about Tyrod. He can throw the ball. Back in college at Virginia Tech, he would really, I mean, it seemed every game he'd have one or two deep balls. And for a scramble QB like Tyrod, that's a great characteristic to have. But yeah, a lot of people in Buffalo love Tyrod. I think if they give the opportunity to give him a standing ovation, I think it will happen. I just don't know. I think, at least once they'll pan to him on the camera, probably before the game. And so I'm going to have to go with yes on that. I think he'll always be remembered as the QB that broke the drought. And luckily for me, a lot of the time in the drought, I was, maybe a little too young to care what was going on the TV during the game. But I definitely was around for a good portion of the drought, and making the playoffs was a memory I'll never forget. I remember watching the Ravens Bengals game to clinch Buffalo right after we beat Miami. And it was just an incredible moment for the whole city. And ever since then, it's just been smooth sailing for the Bills, minus the playoff losses that I won't get into right now. But yeah, I'm going to go with yes on that. I think, as long as they give the opportunity, I think 95% of the stadium would be more than happy to give him a standing ovation.
I agree with you there, man. I really do. And, to kind of, tip off of that point that you made about Tyrod. Yeah, I mean, we saw a little bit of that arm in preseason when he linked up with Jalen Hyatt on a beautiful touchdown. Hopefully we get to see more of that this Sunday. But yeah, I hope that Tyrod gets that. I mean, I think that would be very nice for Tyrod. Who knows how many more games he'll start, and to get his first start in quite some time against a former team that he broke that drought for. I mean, man, I love it. But yeah, guys, 35-17 is what I got this at. But all that aside, Joe Shane, Brian Dable, Bobby Johnson, Matt Breida, revenge game. Let's go.
Let's throw Tommy Sweeney in there too.
Tommy Sweeney, all of them, man.
Cole Beasley, is he getting elevated for this game? I mean,
no, he's still on the practice squad, but if he was, man, that would be funny. It's we as Giants fans always joke that we're the New York Bills, just because of how many members as well as former players from Buffalo this team has. But we're hoping that one day we can have the success that Buffalo's been having in recent years, and hope to turn this rebuild around. But guys, if you've made it this far, thank you so much again for stopping by, and thank you so much again, Cal, for making the time. You guys can find Buffalo Sports Center's YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Discord, like I stated earlier, in the description box below. My friend, before we head out, you got anything you want to say to the people?
Not too much. Just basically, I hope it's a fun game. I think there's going to be a lot of mind games going on. Like I said earlier, both sides know each other pretty well. So I think it'll be a fun game. I think it'll be a little bit closer than people think for a little bit. But it also could be a blowout too. I mean, as much as I want to say, for the Giants fans watching that it could be, an upset, I just don't see it happening. I think the Bills take this one. But you never know. It's football, and we got to love it while it's here because it only lasts for a little bit of the year.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said that better myself, my friend. Again, I appreciate you making the time. We'll see you guys on next week's episode of the Giant Breakdown, and we'll see you guys on our reaction video after Sunday night's game. Thank you for stopping by, man. Appreciate everyone. See you guys soon.